Good morning, colleagues, and welcome to the first Parliamentary Oversight Committee of 2025. A very warm welcome in the warm chambers to the Speaker, the Secretary and Administration, and the members, as well as our Procedural Officer, and to all members online. My name is Gillian Bosman. For the record, can I please ask the members in the chambers, then followed by the members online, to please introduce themselves.
Morning, Chairperson. Dave Bryant, member of the committee.
Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning to our professional staff. I'm Member Boyson. I'm an alternate member, and I'm standing in for Member Kaiser Philander. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Peter Johnson. I'm an alternate member for Member Benedicta van Midden.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ayanda Barnes.
Are there any other members online?
Good morning, Chair and colleagues. I'm Basil Petrus.
Thank you very much, members. I've just noted we are outnumbered on my right. So I know all the faces on this side, but I'm just not checking with the members. Would you like everybody on this side to introduce themselves, or are you happy for us to go ahead and save that 15 minutes? The Speaker would like to introduce everybody for the record. I think the Speaker will do it individually. Just to check if the Speaker knows everybody's names. No, I'm just joking. I'll go over to my right then.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honourable members. My name is Dalen Mitchell and I'm the Speaker.
Good morning, Chairperson, honourable members and Speaker. My name is Romeo Adams and I'm the Secretary to the Western Cape Provincial Parliament.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Nicole Peterson, Chief Financial Officer.
Morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Dawo Jowdin, Manager Finance.
Good morning, Chairperson, members, colleagues. Vernon Titus, Institutional Enablement.
Good morning, Chairperson, members and colleagues. I'm Margot Goldstone, Director for Strategy.
Good morning, Chair and members. Irma de Lange, Senior Officer in the Directorate Strategy and Institutional Oversight.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Craig Mattia, Directorate Strategy and Institutional Oversight.
Good morning, Chair and members. Lubabalo Stemele, Director, Parliamentary Support Services.
Good morning, Andre Leroux, Senior Legal Advisor.
Good morning, Lorica Elliott, Speaker's Office.
Good morning, Chair, members. Ridwan Babu, Knowledge Management.
Good morning, Chair. Wayne Naidu, Security Services, Acting Sergeant at Arms. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, members. Mario Sassman, Manager Committee Support. Thank you.
Morning, Chair. Themba Keso, Manager PEO.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Usman Alexander, Supply Chain Management.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Sunal Fushia, Public Engagement.
Good morning, Carolyn Prakasam, People Management.
Good morning, Genevieve Ackham, Manager, Office of the Secretary.
Thank you very much. Members, I'm also just going to note the apologies for Member Philander, as well as for Member van Midden. They have alternates, and then also an apology received from the Deputy Speaker. So those are the apologies tabled. Colleagues, we are here to get a briefing by the Western Cape Provincial Parliament on the third quarterly performance, both financial and non-financial. We'll thereafter consider and adopt the draft committee report on the third quarterly performance, and then we'll also do some housekeeping around minutes. I'm going to hand over to the Speaker for an opportunity to make any opening remarks preceding the presentation, and then also to the Secretary, if the Secretary would like to as well. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. No opening remarks from me. I think it's pretty straightforward. So with your indulgence, can we get straight into the presentation, and then we will be we'll answer the questions as we go along. Thank you, Chair.
Perfect. I'm happy for us to go straight to the presentation and then engage in a discussion.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson and honourable members, the Western Cape Provincial Parliament is here today to engage or to be engaged by the committee on the third quarter performance and non-performance report. The presentation on the third quarter financial and non-financial report. The third quarter financial report will be done by the Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Peterson, assisted by Mr. Jawadin, and the third quarter non-financial performance will be done by Madame Goldstone, assisted by Madame De Lange. We'll deal with the non-financial performance first. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Members. Apologies for that. So,
can I just ask the members online if you can just make sure that you are muted?
thank you, Chair. So this is the presentation on the non-financial performance for quarter 3 of 2024-25. So the presentation starts with a brief overview of the legislative framework, in terms of which sections 52 and 54 of FAMPLA mandate the accounting officer and the executive authority to prepare a quarterly report within 30 days of the quarter's conclusion, and to subsequently table a report and refer it to the oversight mechanism, which is the Parliamentary Oversight Committee. So this report fulfills the legislative requirement, but also promotes the transparency, accountability, and answerability of the legislature. Then on to institutional highlights for the quarter. In quarter 3, under the strategic priority number 1, building a credible WCPP, key activities included engagements which were held with strategic partnerships on 2 key initiatives. The first one is a performance and expenditure review, which we're embarking on. And maybe just to explain a little bit, the performance and expenditure review is an initiative which we'll be undertaking in partnership with GTAC at National Treasury to assess the efficiency of our spend and the cost effectiveness of our programs as a legislature. The second initiative that was initiated in the third quarter it's a developing partnership that we have with civil society organizations to look into improving our transparency and openness as a legislature towards becoming a truly open parliament. And so we're exploring possibilities around making our data and information publicly available and accessible through open data platforms. Under strategic priority 2, improving and expanding services and experiences of the people of the Western Cape, key activities included the WCPP Engage, which is our public outreach program, which members will be aware of, took place in Worcester in the Cape Winelands in quarter 3. We also facilitated a range of public education workshops over the quarter. Under strategic priority number 3, strengthening the core business, a major focus for quarter 3 would have been the oversight over departmental annual reports and also finalizing several pieces of legislation, which we've listed, including money bills. Under strategic priority 4, strengthening support to legislators. In quarter 3, a delegation led by the Deputy Speaker attended the Commonwealth Parliamentary Conference in Australia with the aim of profiling the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, but also knowledge sharing for delegates on parliamentary matters. Strategic priority 5 on strengthening organizational culture, capability, performance, and resilience. In Q3, as part of the next steps in what members will be aware, we call the culture journey, which started in 2024. We facilitated a session with the management team on climate and culture. So this is the next step in the process. It is followed by a culture audit, which we had undertaken earlier in 2024. In terms of program performance, so this is planned versus actual performance, we have 22 indicators for the year and 6 for Q3. One of the 6 was not achieved, 5 of them were met. And the one that was not achieved is in program 3, public engagement. So in programs 1 and 2, where we had targets due to be reported and to be achieved, all of those targets were met. It is only in program 3. To just focus on the reason for the underachievement in program 3, it relates to an indicator on the percentage of planned activities completed as per the revised public engagement strategy. So three activities were planned for rollout in terms of that strategy in Q3. It's the active citizenry journey, WCPP Engage, and a petitions roadshow. The first 2 were completed, but the petitions roadshow could not take place in Q3 due to delays in finalizing the petitions procedure, which is a prerequisite for undertaking, was a prerequisite for undertaking the roadshow. Where we are with this now is there is a plan in place to reconceptualize the roadshow and to accelerate the work so that we can still deliver on this and achieve the target in 2024-2025. The next couple of slides cover the detailed performance, and I'll go through it very quickly. So in program 1, under the sub-programs Office of the Speaker and Office of the Secretary, we achieved 100% compliance with the prescribed legislative obligations in terms of FAMPLA. In program 2, under the Parliamentary Support Services, under the sub-programs, plenary support and committee support, all targets were met. So 100% achieved on House papers electronically available, draft committee reports produced in line with the standard operating procedures, and committee decisions tracked. And then finally, program 3 only had 1 target, and I've already reported on the underachievement there. The next few slides deal with the priorities for the remainder of the year. So this is what we're currently working on or will initiate before the end of the quarter. These are also startup activities in support of the new 5-year strategy, which commences in April of 2025. And they include further engagements on the open parliaments concept and the expenditure review, scoping of the public perception survey and organized stakeholder surveys. And maybe just to indicate that we're planning to undertake these surveys for the first time ever in the history of the WCPP to assess the level of public awareness of the mandate of the legislature, but also to test perceptions of the extent to which the public actually trust the legislature, believe in its credibility, and perceive it to be effective. We'll commence the review of our functional strategies, so the existing strategies like our IT strategy and so on, which would have lapsed at the end of the last 5 years. We'll also begin working on developing new strategies in terms of our new 5-year institutional strategy, like the members' capability strategy, some work around an artificial intelligence framework. So all very exciting developments in the functional strategy space. We'll also initiate work on an organizational design study, a redesign, in Q4 to ensure that we are adequately equipped as the administration to support the achievement of the strategy for the next 5 years, but also to effectively support members in executing the constitutional mandate. We'll start also conceptualizing a public-facing whistleblowing complaints mechanism as part of the activities towards the end of the year. And finally, we will do some scoping around a new website, which we've said we consider to be overdue, but we'll start the scoping work towards the end of the quarter and into the new financial year. Chair, other high-level activities that have kept us or keeping us quite busy is obviously the preparation for SOPA 2025 and the Provincial Budget Day. We're also finalizing the strategic plan, annual performance plan, and budget. The audit is about to commence. The AG is already on site, and they've commenced with their planning phase for the audit of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. And then finally, we will start in earnest to undertake the operational planning, which will involve all directorates of the administration to ensure that we are ready for execution from 1st of April 2025. And Chair, that concludes the presentation on non-financial performance. Thank you.
Colleagues, are you happy for us to take both presentations and then go into questions? Perfect, we'll do that then.
Apologies, Chair, I just have some technical difficulty to get the actual presentation. You, Chair. I'll be doing the presentation on the third quarter IYM report, just with regards to the expenditure as at the 31st of December 2024. Of our budget of 258,770,000, as at the end of December, we spent 196,820,000, which is an effective spend of 76.27%. Just in summary, with regards to our spend, we do have a projected saving, particularly with regards to our expenditure, which would have been more. However, we have identified that is due to vacant posts. However, the other reason for the slow expenditure as at the end of the third quarter is the fact that we are anticipating quite a few high-value once-off projects to take place now in the fourth quarter, which will basically bring us close to 100% towards the end of the financial year. And that once we expend, just for a couple examples of that would be SOPA, which is taking place in the next financial year, which is a once-off project. The update of the audiovisual in the chamber, as well as some other project regarding ERP version 12 upgrade. With regards to Program 1, of the Program 1 budget of 99,273,000, we spent 68% of that budget as at the end of the third quarter. And the main reason for the slow expenditure on that program is mainly due to the vacant post, as well as I mentioned, the majority of the ones-off expenditure take place is in the fourth quarter in this particular program. And that's, for example, the ERP version 12 upgrade, the AV upgrade in the chamber and the committee rooms, as well as some slow expenditure on the SAP static security services in the security service program. With regard to Program 2, of the adjusted budget of 24,076,000, we've spent 16,333,000, and that's a 67.84% spend on that budget. And the main reason, as we can see in that particular sub-program, is under standing committees and so on, and that's mainly due to the fact that we have moved from the 6th to the 7th Parliament, so there was a period within the financial year where expenditure was slow, and because of the reduced activity, the expenditure in that particular sub-programs has been less than what it would normally have been in a normal year. With regards to Program 3, of the budget of 16,477,000, we spent 11,141,000, which is a 67.62% spend. And there, as I mentioned earlier, we can see the slow expenditure is under stakeholder management and communication services, and that is mainly like I mentioned earlier, the majority of the SOPA expenditure is ours within that sub-program, and we're looking there to see the expenditure accelerate now in the fourth quarter to be closer to the 100% spend. With regard to program 4, of the budget or adjusted budget of 63,319,000, we've spent 59,640,000, and 94.19% spend. And the reason for that high expenditure is due mainly to the fact that for the political party secretarial and constituency allowances, we pay that in advance. So as at the end of December, all the political parties will pay their advances for the year for secretarial and constituency allowances. However, with regards to the enabling and contribution allowances or enabling allowances, that is demand driven. So that is obviously based on claims from members, and that's why that expenditure is not as high as what we would have projected for. In program 5, that's the direct charge, that's member salaries. So that's obviously as and when we pay member salaries. So we are on track with that budget. The adjusted budget is 54,925,000. And as at the end of quarter 3, we spent 42,137,000, which is a 76.72% spend on that budget, which we basically on track with. And Chair, that's a summary of the quarter 3, financial report where we are at as at the end of December. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Chairperson. So just to wrap up the two presentations, the third quarter of the first year of a parliamentary term is a bit different than any of the other quarters. So there's been quite a few other activities that we would not ordinarily conduct in a third quarter. And Ms. Goldstone had spoken to those activities, including the drafting and the engagement on a new strategic plan for the 5 years ahead, both from a performance perspective and from a financial perspective. I think 3 terms were at top of mind when we had performed those exercises, and even in the current work that we do. It's responsiveness, credibility, and sustainability. And Chairperson and members, those are the 3 terms that we think when we look at even our performance in the third quarter and the expenditure in the third quarter, the responsiveness to the needs of Parliament, its members and the citizenry, the credibility of our plans and our spending, and the sustainability of our spending and our plans are what we have also been busy with during the third quarter. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Members, I see Member Bryant. You may go ahead.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you to everyone for those short, precise, to the point presentations. Just 2 questions. The first one was in terms of the organizational structure review. Maybe I didn't catch it, but just what is the envisaged process to appoint that service provider and some timelines in terms of when that's going to likely take place? And then just secondly, in terms of the spend on security services, I heard something about SAPS. If you can just expand a little bit more in terms of why that is below 50% spend, because obviously security is a challenge and an issue. Just a little bit concerned as to why that's less than 50%. But in general, thank you for the presentations, and I think it is showing positive progress on the whole. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I see Member Barnes and Member Boyson, if I could just add a follow-up to Member Brian's question on regarding the spend on security services. On the presentation, it says percentage spend is 49.15%. In the narrative report that was ATC'd, it says 54.24%. Is that just a typo, or so on page 3 of the narrative report that was ATC'd through the clerk of the papers, it says 54.24%. But I see Member Barnes now and then Member Boyson.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just 2 questions from my side. My first one would be on the first presentation. I think there was a slide that was speaking about conceptualization of a whistleblowing, public-facing mechanisms for whistleblowing. Just wanted to check with that, Chair. When we speak of conceptualization, I don't see a budget. Perhaps if we can just be taken through what is meant by that, because I'm unclear as to what is actually meant by that specific line. Then my second one, Chair, would be a general question emanating from our last meeting. Since we are on budget, I think I've raised a question to yourself where I wanted the part of budgeting to be addressing public participation of our community members, our constituencies visiting the legislature. I think there was a misunderstanding between the outreach and how our members from our constituencies are visiting Parliament. I was made to be understanding that there is no budget for such. My direct question now, Chair, on that last request that I put at our last meeting was that, is there any effort put in place or a mechanism to address the issue that I've raised at our last meeting? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Barnes. Member Boyson.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I must admit that this committee doesn't give one an opportunity to shine. You know, we're used to asking questions and this is too well oiled. My question then, Chairperson, is that with the underspending in the different programs, 2, 3, are we still on track in terms of reaching the 100%? But I am pleasantly surprised and I'm happy that it's a well-oiled machine, Mr. Speaker.
Don't worry, there'll be lots of opportunities to shine. It's our first meeting of the year. I see Member Petrus as well, for the last person in this round.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, do we have a date for the completion of the strategic plan for the next 5 years?
Thank you very much. I'll now then hand over to the Speaker and the Secretary and our colleagues from the administration.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to hand over to Mr. Dowdin, and I think there was one question, Mr. Titus, that was directed at you, and I will wrap up at the end because there's a few comments that I would like to make, but I don't want to contaminate the responses. Thank you.
Chairperson, if you would allow me just quickly, there was a question by Honourable Barnes on the conceptualization of the public-facing whistleblowing mechanism. So the conceptualization includes what do we as an institution require the mechanism to do, and how do we think it would interface with the public. Secondly, I think the issue of confidentiality would be top of mind, so that those who want to engage with the mechanism feel free to engage with the mechanism. The conceptualization, therefore, is an internal process for the administration, together with the leadership of the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker, to put together the thinking on those specific areas. Like the Speaker had indicated, Mr. Titus, also Madame Fouchier on the question of Honourable Barnes regarding members of the community visiting the Parliament, and then also Madame Goldstone on the timelines for completion of the strategic plan. And then Madame Peterson and Mr. Javudin on the underspend and the 100%.
You, Chair, if I may, if I can maybe first touch on the question on the SAPS, Static Security Services, before just to latch onto it. So with regards to that expenditure, previously SAPS provided a service for static security services when we have oversight visits, etc. From this financial year, SAPS does not pay for that anymore. They claim it from us, so we are now footing the bill particularly for that. However, the reason for the slow expenditure for that is we pay it on a claim basis. So SAPS would claim that funds from us. However, the actual claims has come through very slowly. So the fact that we have been receiving claims probably 6 months after the fact is the reason for the slow expenditure for that. However, that is an expenditure which previously we did not pay. It was paid for by SAPS, particularly for the static security services. But to answer the question, that is the main reason why that expenditure is so low? And to answer the chair's question with regards to the percentage, as at the end of Q3, which is the end of December, it was 49.15%. The OTC that chair is referring to is as the end of January, so a month later. So the 54.2% is as at the end of January 2025. With regards to the percentages, I'm not sure Mr. I want to latch on to the SAP security service before I continue with the other question.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you, Dawood. I think the only other thing to say is that there are quite a number of outstanding invoices. There are 2 invoices that have not been paid for services that have been rendered already in this quarter. And then, of course, as members would know, there's the upcoming SOPA, for which we will have extensive static security services as well, for which we still need to be billed. So that is all part of some of the outstanding budget line items. The rest, I think, Mr. Jawudeen had covered. I don't know whether I should also now continue with the question from Member Bryant around the structural enhancement or the our structure changes and the appointment of a service provider. So the idea is that we would be in this particular quarter go through the procurement process. It is an open procurement process that we generally follow because this is a very specific and targeted requirement. We've already drafted specifications, so we're going through that process within this quarter, and then all of the work. Then obviously in the new financial year, there needs to be an appointment of a service provider and all of the work then. So part of it means that there must be approval and then all of the work in the new financial year. And then the implications then of the report from the professional OD study thereafter.
I noted the speaker wanted to comment on that specifically. Are you happy to wait for everybody else to finish and then you come at the end? Okay.
Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Honourable Boyson, thank you. You made a comment when you greeted us and you referred to us as the professional staff of the WCPP. That's much appreciated because that really is what we are and what we're trying to be. With regards to the question asked by Honourable Barnes, what we have to do as public education and outreach and just public engagement for the Western Cape is to look at our operational budget, which really is smaller than what people think. I think we have about 1.7 million for a year, and we aim to reach as far and as broadly into the province as what we possibly can. So we try to devise strategies to get as much bang for our buck as what is possible. So if we send a team of 3 people to, for instance, the Central Karoo, the cost is significantly less than transporting 50, 30, or even 15 people from the Central Karoo to Cape Town to the seat of WCPP with transport, accommodation, etc. So whilst it is our dream and desire to have everyone in the province experience the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, unfortunately, that is not feasible for us in our current financial framework. We did do a digital public education and outreach video, which is a professional video of a PEO workshop, which is shot in this building. So it gives people more of a look and feel of what it looks like here. But as I say, in terms of the funding to our availability and the number of people that we can reach at this point, for us to bring people here is not generally feasible. When people do ask to come to WCPP, generally they're responsible for their own transport. We do, however, take every request on its own merits based on the resources that we have available. Thank you, Chair. If I can just add, sorry, Mr. Chair, that in the build-up to SOPA, in last week we did have PEO workshops in the Central Karoo, and we had about 100 people participating from all the towns, and we transported them to the center, from Murraysburg to Merweville, Nelspruit, Laingsburg, Prince Albert, and all the surrounding little towns. Thank you.
Chair, I think there's one more question with regards to the underspend and whether we are on track. So we currently are on track to spend a budget. However, with regards to, as I mentioned previously, there's quite a bit of expenditure planned in the fourth quarter, and with the procurement and actual finalization of that expenditure, there could be a possibility where that expenditure straddles over the financial year. However, that funds will more likely be committed, as in orders will be placed, service providers will be appointed, but that expenditure might not happen as at the end of March. However, Section 23 of AMPLA does allow us via approval from the Speaker to roll over any underspending from one year to the next year. So we normally would roll over any committed funds for expenditure that is not spent as at the end of financial year, but will be spent later on in the next financial year. But we are more or less on track with spending the majority of our budget. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. In relation to Member Pietrus's question on the strategic plan, we have a draft strategic plan in place, but the committee will appreciate that part of finalizing the strategic plan would entail ensuring that the resourcing requirements are fully met. So we've only up to recently still been in consultation with Provincial Treasury in that regard. We are now at the final stages of wrapping up on the documentation, so putting the strat plan document together, but it's been quite exhaustive and extensive, the extent to which we've had to engage Treasury, for example, because a whole lot of new initiatives have been incorporated into the new strategic plan, which were not on the table previously. So it is quite a radical shift from where we had been in the previous term. In terms of timelines going forward, so we're wrapping up. We should have it at the printers in the next couple of days, and then members should receive a copy just before budget day, so around the 5th of February. For your consumption. Thank you, Member. Thank you, Chair. The 5th of March.
Thank you very much. Speaker, you wanted to also make some comments?
Chair, I think I'm covered now with all the responses. I just think it's important to just note that on the static security services, I will be engaging SAPS with regards to that, because although we are budgeting and paying for the services, I do, however, I need to be very diplomatically with my response. I do not think that it is a service that Parliament, as a key point and for the work of Parliament, should in any case be paying, but that's a separate discussion altogether.
Just from clarity from my side, just so I understand, so static security refers to the SAPS police on the premises here, manning the metal detectors.
But it's actually more than just that. So even when a standing committee does oversight, all those kind of additional security services, in inverted commas, will be funded by, or what the request is that it now should be funded by us. So it's not physically just the manning of the parliamentary precinct.
So just from a cost perspective, what would be the difference between the standing committee being supported by the docs, or docs, people that used to accompany us, versus the police? Because generally you would call the police if you need them, because a normal standing committee going on an oversight where nobody knows what you're doing there might be low risk and you don't need a police escort, whereas if you have police there already, you're going to draw attention to the members.
So that used to be the arrangement or the agreement between Parliament and POX or POX now. And we were informed, I think last year, in the last financial year, that based on, don't know, their internal mechanisms or advice received, I don't know from the AG or where they received that advice, but it's not their function. So they can't provide or they can't pay for a service that is not their function. So that used to be the case, and POX is no longer funding that service, and that's why it's now SAPS who is the responsible agency, but now SAPS is sending us a bill.
I'm sure if we play them up against each other, the one will be cheaper than the other. Mr. Secretary, I also saw Mr. Titus, and I saw another hand as well. I don't remember.
Chairperson, thank you, and thank you to Speaker for that answer. So there is a process. The process entails an assessment of what services are required. So let's say standing committees goes out in a public hearing on the Bella Bill. There's an assessment of what services are
On a
required.
point of order, it's now an act.
But okay.
It was a hypothetical
It's a hypothetical example on some controversial piece of legislation that is being considered. Thank you, Speaker. There's an assessment of what services would be required based on the the assessment of the security apparatus. The WCPP is then provided with an estimate/quotation. We then scrutinize whether those services are actually required. So let's say SAP say we need 5 police officers at the following levels and following ranks, because the ranks actually affect what we pay for it. Our component dealing with precinct safety and security then does that assessment. If we are not quite happy with what they are quoting because of the numbers and the cost of those numbers, the SAPS is then re-engaged in terms of that. We don't just accept what they give us, we also do our assessment in terms of the estimate. Like the speaker has indicated, Chairperson, some of these services would previously have been provided by the now Department of Police Oversight and Community Safety. They had engaged us in the previous parliamentary term that based on a legal opinion that they had received regarding the services they are providing to the WCPP, those services do not fall within their mandate, and therefore there was a discontinuation of those services. Thank you, Chairperson. Mr. Titus.
Thank you, Chair and Mr. Adams. I think the only thing to say is that the mandate, completely almost covered by the Secretary, I think the mandate of police oversight and community safety is egress and ingress control of government buildings. That is the mandate of POX in terms of our agreement. And in terms of the legal opinion that they had sought, SAPS provides safety and security mechanisms. And I think the other thing that also needs to be aired here is that when we are talking about static services, these are specialized services. It's not as if if we are having a SOPA in Beaufort West that you can just use the police from Beaufort West. These are specialized and trained individuals who specialize in static security. And so therefore, that is a direct procured service. We'd make use of local and municipal support at the various events, but static services is specialized, and I need to emphasize that. Thank you.
So when we do oversight over buildings owned by the Western Cape, like libraries and Cape Access Centres, POX must automatically be there because it's egress and ingress into government buildings. So we don't really need SAPs. But I saw Member Bryant. I'll be visiting that committee to ask this question. I saw Member Bryant, and then Member Boyson, and then Member Johnson.
Thanks very much, Chairperson, and thanks for the responses to the officials and the Speaker. Chair, I think it might be worthwhile taking into consideration the challenges that are being faced in terms of the claims from SAPS, that a well-considered letter, either be submitted by yourself as Chairperson of the committee, or perhaps better placed from the Speaker, I'm not sure, to the relevant SAPS representatives, highlighting these concerns, because we have identified an issue now within the committee, and I think it's incumbent on us to ensure that that is raised from our side, Chair. So I would recommend that, and perhaps we can follow that up further during our resolutions at the end of the meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, through you to the Speaker, Chairperson, it sets off a light depending on how your engagement through your Chairperson to the Speaker with SAPS would then play out, because I'm now just thinking, which then means if we as committees have oversight, it means we as chairpersons of those committees, we would then also, we would have to be taken into account, because when we activate these oversight visits, etc., that would then have an impact on the budget that SEPs must then go and check the venues out or whatever, which then means we can drive the budget sky high, or we need to know so that we don't push the envelope when it comes to expenditure, because we don't activate the Speaker's office nor the Chief Whip office necessarily when we have these oversight visits. Thank you.
Member Johnson, and then Member Barnes.
Thank you, Chairperson. I do not want to pose a question, just a comment from my side, and it's not because of the percentage target reached for Program 3, as this is the only program that we know that did not receive 100% of the target set. I actually want to commend the officials on the public education and outreach, as I attended the one in Prince Albert last week. Really just in the manner in which they worked with difficult community members. And I do think that I would like to appeal to the Speaker and the Secretary that this is the program with the smallest allocated budget from all the programs. And I really do think that you could see, and especially in the rural areas, that people are interested when WCPP goes out into different rural areas, that when it comes to budgeting again, to see that we can perhaps increase the budget for the public education and outreach program, as I really do think it is of interest for the people of the Western Cape. And I would like to thank the officials at the Prince Albert Outreach. I really do think it was a positive engagement. Thank you, Chair.
Got one extra member coming to our budget committee discussion. Member Barnes.
Thank you, Chairperson, once again. Perhaps let me join the member that has just spoken a few minutes ago by saying, Chair, one cannot deny to say that one can see the educational programs happening in the rural committee. It yields as a positive sign. The reason for me to raise community involvement, in fact, coming to Parliament at the 7 Wales Street, Chair, I don't want to be misunderstood as if I'm not being visible or understanding the financial conditions or materials attached to the views that I'm raising. What I'm actually pushing here, management and the Speaker, is to start to have creative mindset around how to accommodate an Ayanda that is coming from the Karoo with a constituency and many other members that are there. It might not be understood in a way that what we are facing as members. We have websites where people are showing off their work. At the end of the day, when we go to our constituencies, we get compared. We get the questions as to, but we are also staying in the same Western Cape. Don't tell us about it's not feasible, you don't have money. If you can do it for a person that is in Malmesbury, which it makes sense, Malmesbury is close by, but it's still in the same Western Cape. My plea here to Speaker and to management is to look at the rules. If a member is perhaps allowed to do 4 visits per annum, how about reducing it and say all members, you are only allowed one visit for everyone to bring people to Parliament, so that we can accommodate everyone, even the ones that are at the outskirts. So we stop having that there are members that are getting this and the other members are not getting it, but yet we are all in the same Western Cape. So my plea here to management is to actually go and have a relook and see how can this be addressed, so that we don't always sit in a position of having pressure when we go back to our constituencies, not being able to accommodate or to respond to certain matters. It's just a sincere and original plea that I'm bringing here. Even in the terms to come, Chairperson, this problem will have been addressed by really looking and zooming into what I'm saying. Thank you, Chair. I'm pleading on this one.
Thank you very much. The speaker wanted to start us off there.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chair, I just want to respond to Honourable Boyson's question. So before any standing committee embarks on oversight, there is a security risk assessment that gets done, regardless of where you are going for oversight. That gets done by Mr. Naidu and the team. That gets then filtered through to the law enforcement agencies, and based on the risk, and I think the Secretary spoke about it earlier on, the risk assessment then gets costed against that, and then interventions are placed interventions are put in place. I want to categorically state that a budget, although we are working within the fiscal constraints, budgets should not be a deterrent for oversight. And Parliament has got, as one of our 3 constitutional mandates, is to have oversight of the executive. And we can never stop doing those oversight or performing our oversight responsibilities as Parliament, and then use a budget or additional requests for budget as an excuse not to do that. We have an obligation, we have a constitutional mandate, and that's why people are probably getting sick of hearing it. But the budget that I will table in this financial year will speak to the core constitutional mandates of a Parliament, and everything else, the bells and the whistles, will be add-ons to that. And so we'll get back to basics. We will ensure that public education and outreach, public participation as defined in the Constitution, oversight of the executive is core to the budget that I will table later this year.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Speaker, Mr. Chair. Honourable Barnes, I think what we can do, sorry, is to do a cost analysis. It will probably not be possible for each individual member, or 31, but we could look at regions. But I will have to do a cost benefit, and it might have to be over a term, not in a year. But we'll do a cost analysis and submit to the committee. Thank you. Was I audible? Okay, cool.
Maybe just an idea as well. I noted recently that Westkrow has put the town of Prince Albert with 7,000 people on Roblox. So maybe we must put the provincial parliament on Roblox as well, so we can digitally participate in the parliament as well in the metaverse. Table Mountain's already on there. We can probably just piggyback on Westkrow's plan and put a WCPP on there as well. That's just a side for Member Johnson, who's the constituency head from Prince Albert. Colleagues, I'm ready for another round of questions. I'll kick it off and just also ask on this percentage spend, the spend on information technology and digital services. That also seems very low with very little time to spend that. And then also the spend by committee services. I had a committee chairperson write to me to say that they were advised to scale back on oversight visits because they're going to max their budget. And I said, but surely the other committees haven't spent all of their money. So why is the spend on information technology and digital services so low, as well as committee services? In the absence of hands for now, I'll hand over for response to those 2 questions.
Chairperson, thank you. Just before Mr. Stimele and Mr. Sussman responds to that. And Chairperson, this is maybe something we haven't gotten 100% accurate, is that what probably should be in front of our minds is the total budget as per the Blue Book for committee services. How that amounts are made available to committees is something that still seems to be work in progress, because like you had said, and from our experience from previous parliamentary terms, they are by its nature, there are committees that are more active than other committees. And surely when we only consider through our planning process the fact that X amount is available for the entire work of committees, through the planning, through the budgeting process by committee chairpersons with their committees, let's call it the trade-off that you had indicated, because of the nature of some committees not being as active as other committees, that type of difference or differentiated approach could be taken into account in terms of the work of committees. If we really look at previous financial years and a breakdown of each of the committees in, let's say, the immediate past financial year, you would see that some committees, because of the nature of the work, had spent more money because they had legislation that needed to be processed through those committees, where other committees may not have had legislation that they needed to process, and therefore stuff like public hearings and other engagements would have been more in those committees that needed to process those type of activities. I'm going to allow Mr. Stimele and then Mr. Sussman also to maybe just supplement that input. Thank you.
Thanks, Secretary. Can I request Mr. Sussman just to, on that specific committee issue, Chair, then, but on generally, what we're looking at when we do in the past, when we look at how do we budget for committees, it will be based on the committee, their committee budgets, but their committee, how they've planned and they've costed their business plans would not necessarily be equal to what we have. So we'll say then proportionally from what we see, what has been planned, how do we give each committees, knowing it very well that committees are not spending at the same rate. But you know, in the example that we're saying, I don't want to speculate as to what might have happened, but probably Mr. Sussman has got the details of that. But now going forward, what we're planning at is that our own budgeting or committee plans must be informed by the strategic planning of all committees, so that when the committee submits its own plans, they're based on actually what we've agreed on as part or as fulfilling our strategic plan for committees. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think it's important for me for the record state that the strategic direction that committees take, it's the prerogative of the chairperson that sets the agenda and tone for a committee, and the committee members of that particular committee. I don't want this perception created that committees are being managed by the administration or directed by the administration. The administration provides the support to committees to execute the plan and strategic direction that is set by the committee itself. There is also a chairperson, just for the record, there is a meeting scheduled with the administration and committee services and the chairpersons of committees, so that we can and we can use that opportunity to also to cement the strategic budgeting that committees needs to do to the administration and not the other way around. Thank you.
Mr. Sussman.
Chairperson, thank you. I take into account what the previous speakers have indicated. I just want to maybe add that we have to understand that in terms of the budget of committees, the 3.5 million that has been allocated, this is an election year. We've come to the end of it almost. And it was, as the Secretary indicated much earlier, it is different to other years of a parliamentary term. And some of the line items that are some of our biggest spends would be determined by the activities of the respective committees. For example, legislation, provincial, as well as NCLP, which would then kick into public hearings, advertising, catering, transport for the public, etc. These are some of the high spend items, and our committees have not been that active in the first year of the parliamentary term. We have to take that into consideration, and hence there's only a 39% spend for the financial year thus far. I take into account what the speaker has indicated, that it is the responsibility of the committee to determine its program, but its program is also dependent on the legislation that comes before a committee. And there hasn't been much legislation for this financial year. There are pieces of legislation that have come in the very recent weeks and months, and we are busy processing that. So that will kick in. Whatever we can spend within this financial year, it is projected as such, and the rest will have to kick in for the new financial year. In terms of maybe it's not that huge, but I just want to mention also that a very strong practice within the committee section from both committees and the administration is the focus on cost saving, using austerity measures. So despite the fact that we have not been using a big spend of our budget, we are also concentrating on using our money very effectively to try and save costs on unnecessary spending on certain elements. And I'm not talking about the usual spend, but where we can save, we are also still keeping that in mind going forward. Thank you, Chairperson.
Chairperson, part of your question also attended to digital services and IT technology, info technology. Mr. Titus will and Dawood.
You, Chair, if I may go first. Just with regards to the IT budget and the slow expenditure there, I touched on it earlier with regards to that, and that's one of the particular sub-programs where there's quite a few ones of projects that's planned in the fourth quarter. However, other reasons for that slow expenditure under the ITDS sub-program is the fact that there are some vacancies in that sub-program that was vacant for the majority of the year and are in the process of being filled. However, just to mention some of the ones of projects which are planned in the fourth quarter, which should push that expenditure up slightly. We don't anticipate that to be fully spent as in the financial year, particularly because of the fact that the upgrade of the chamber and committee rooms is the AV of that is housed within this particular sub-program. And even though the procurement of that might start, at links to the comment I made earlier, the funds might be committed, but might not be spent in this financial year. And that's over 6 million, particularly for that particular project, which was planned in the fourth quarter. However, the finalization of that could straddle over the financial years. So some cost with regards to SOPA is also housed in this particular sub-program with regards to the AV in SOPA, and other ones of expenditure, like I mentioned earlier, some of the ERP costs and ones of expenditure is particularly in that sub-program. So a huge chunk of expenditure is anticipated and projected for in the fourth quarter, and some of them might, like I mentioned earlier, and I'm repeating myself, apologies, some of them might straddle over the next financial year and be rolled over if and when committed to you. And I'm sure Mr. Titus want to add to that as well.
Thank you, Chair. I think the only other thing is to say that the largest project, the chamber refresh, the committee upgrades, as well as the chamber, the committee rooms, the library, and the auditorium upgrades. That is a multi-year project. So while the funds are identified, procurement is happening is in that particular process now, but the rollout of the project is over multiple years within the medium-term expenditure framework.
Last round of questions, members. Member Boyson.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I'm now getting the gist of it. So do I understand the inputs correctly due to the underspend that we then can, for ourselves as committees, project rollover plus new budget because we're going to be geared up in the new financial year?
On the 13th of March, the Speaker, the Secretary, and the entire team will come into the chambers or will be online, I think, for that meeting, and they will present the budget. And then we will have some time to interrogate and make inputs. And once that's done, Mr. Stemele will send you a meeting invite to say you have to draft a business plan. There'll be a workshop, and only then do you project what you're going to spend. But the Speaker can promise rollovers, but I can't. So I can't tell you whether your understanding is correct. But I'll hand over to the Speaker to make that promise.
Thank you very much. The Speaker doesn't make promises, so the Speaker will not promise on rollovers. But what I can say, and I've made this commitment publicly on numerous occasions, the baseline for committees will never ever be less than 3.5 million rand. So that will be as a starting point. I've said it before, and I'm very comfortable to say that. Everything else, I cannot make commitments at this point because the budget process is still ongoing.
We'll take our cue from what happens at 2 o'clock this afternoon in the big house. I see Member Petrus.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, the organizational structure process, will it be a consultative process? Will everybody be involved, like the staff and the organization?
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to Honorable Petrus for the question. So organizational review processes by its very nature is an engagement process where there's an assessment of the need of the institution. Those assessments are usually done based against the strategy of the institution. Those assessments also include engagement with stakeholders, and the stakeholders will be defined as per the specifications that will be drafted by the administration in consultation with the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, members. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Secretary, I'm not sure if you have any closing remarks, but thank you on behalf of the committee to everybody for appearing in person today and also for the presentations and the engagement as well.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you to the members for the manner in which you could engage. As always, Parliament Parliament is all our Parliament. It's not. It's a very special place. It's unlike a government department. Here we represent all 9 political parties and all 42 members. So thank you very much for the manner in which you could do it. Thank you to the Secretary and the team, and we look forward to the next engagement.
Thank you very much. There are some refreshments in the members' dining room. Please go and help yourselves. Members, please stay put so we can just get through some of our admin. But thank you very much. Colleagues, I'm now going to just ask Ms. Kamish Ahmad to table the draft committee report on the third quarterly performance, both financial and non-financial. But that report will then read the report of the Parliamentary Oversight Committee on the Western Cape Provincial Parliament third quarter performance, financial and non-financial, 2024, dated 19th of February, 2025. So it will read the Parliamentary Oversight Committee convened on the 19th of February 2025 and concluded its deliberations on the Western Cape Provincial Parliament third quarter performance, financial and non-financial, refer to it in accordance with Standing Rule 89.1, in accordance with Section 37.6 and 66.2 of the FMPPLA. The Western Cape Provincial Parliament reported to the committee that no instructions were issued for the period under review. Members, are we happy to adopt that report? If so, can I have a proposer and a seconder, please?
I propose, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. And then we've got a seconder there as well. We are also now going to adopt the draft committee minutes for the 29th of November. I think Wasima's trying to sabotage me because on the screen she wrote 19th, but on my page she wrote 18th. Now I'm thinking, what day is it? Just checking there whether I'm actually reading what she sends me. So the minutes, I think the only people that can consider these minutes are myself and Member Boyson. Who else was there? Mr. Jacobs was also there. Okay, so it's only three of us. So these are the minutes. On page 1, it deals with attendance. This was us discussing the appropriation adjustment for vote 2. And then we also considered and adopted the report on vote 2, and we adopted some minutes. And then there was one resolution by the speaker on alternates participating in oversight meetings and public hearings. From the 2 colleagues that were at the meeting, can I have a proposer?
I so propose, Chairperson.
Perfect. And we've got a seconder as well. Perfect. That takes care of the minutes of the 29th of November. We'll now move to resolutions or any actions stemming from this meeting. Member Bryant?
Thanks, Chair. Just my suggestion that we write, I don't know who exactly one would write to within SAPS, but just to highlight some of the concerns that were raised in terms of the claims and the payment and the fact that that is impacting the overall functioning of.
Would it be a good idea to do a little investigation to see whether it's what the other legislatures are doing? So has SAPS gone across the country and said everybody has to pay? Does it apply to the National Assembly? And then I think also maybe we need to ask SAPS to give us some more clarity on how do you define when you have to pay for protection or security services vis-a-vis when it's a public gathering. So my assumption is for SOPA would be classified within a specific security sort of threat. So they were going to be there anyway.
Well, Chair, perhaps then what it might require instead of a letter is a request. Sorry, ma'am. Is a request to present to the committee or provide a report. Maybe that's a better option, as you mentioned.
So maybe what we can then do is we can ask the security services within Parliament through the Sergeant at Arms to put a report together for us on what the sort of legal status is on SAPS's responsibility to provide static security to Parliament, and then also do a scoping activity on what the case is at the other 8 legislatures as well as the National Assembly, and then maybe engage with legal services as well. The Sergeant at Arms' office can ask legal services what the legal status of a meeting like SOPA would be, because my assumption is SAPS is going to be there with the ministers and the cabinet as well. So, perfect. Any other resolutions or actions or requests for information? No? Good. Members, thank you very much. And thank you very much to Ms. Kamish Ahmad and Ms. Mashupela for their assistance. The meeting is thus adjourned. Please eat the refreshments provided so that we don't engage in wasteful expenditure.